Hello YouTube, this is Alexis, Transgender Duelist, and today I went ahead and kidnapped my friend here, the Fabled. Say hello.
Hey, how's it going?
So today we're going to be having a nice little match against Burning Abyss versus Phantom Knights. I'm using Phantom Knights, my opponent is using Burning Abyss. You have your replay going, right?
I do. I paused it on the second play. I'm looking at a set card and a set monster right now.
Okay, well I'm currently on the first play, so we're just going to start commentating from here and see what's going on. So as you can see in my hand, I don't really open up that well. I just kind of have a Phantom Knight and some trap cards, so I decided my best play going first is just to set the trap card, set the monster, and hope that my opponent special summons monsters that I can make some value off of Max C, since generally when you have Max C, it's at least a +1.
Now, I wasn't watching this, obviously, with zero watchers before. Did you know that your opponent was playing Burning Abyss when you went into this?
No, this is actually a random game where I just went into rated using Burning Abyss and just kind of wanted to see what matches I could get. And I ended up finding Burning Abyss. This game took like, I think, 40 minutes, and I think it would be just a fun little game to go over. Obviously, we're going to fast forward some of the slower parts because there are some parts where players are just thinking what the heck to do.
For sure.
Yeah, so he just goes ahead and runs over my monster, which, I mean, I drew into Silent Boots, which means that I can turn the Ancient Cloak into any other Phantom Beast, which means that I basically have a break sword in my hand right now. And if anyone's wondering why I don't just instantly enter main phase, it's because I always like to give my opponent the option to activate things before I just speed into my turn. It tends to prevent a lot of admin calls. It also tends to be responsible for a few admin calls because some people just want you to play at Sonic speed. You ever have those people?
Well, usually when I'm playing and I have to do an admin call, like I'm playing, there's only a few reasons. It's like when my opponent's just not asking responses or communicating. It's like, whoa, I've got Crystal Wing, I've got 2 set cards and this, that, and you're just rushing through, and I'd like to actually communicate and actually play a little bit. Or sometimes a lot of people breaking game states to the point where it's like, well, I mean, it's a little far gone now. You just kept playing after I asked you to stop. We could have repaired it a minute ago, but
just want to quickly go. So here's a fun little thing you can do that kind of gives me the advantage against Burning Abyss players, or any other deck that focuses on Exceed summoning, and it's the Phantom Knight of Lost Remembrance over here. Do you want to read it, or do you want me to?
You can go for it.
Okay, so this thing does 3 very useful little gimmicks. First off, you get to target a monster, its level becomes level 2, and it loses 600 attack points. Obviously, it's a little bit meh, but against an Exceed spam deck like Burning Abyss, if you turn one of their monsters into level 2, obviously they can't go into anything. I mean, they can, but this guy has a back row, so he can't special summon a Burning Abyss, obviously. And on top of that, it also gives you a body on the field and gives all your Phantom Knights immunity to battle destruction. And I just want to point out this ruling because I've actually had to call an admin on this 6 times in the past 4 days. But if the monster that you target for Lost Remembrance leaves the field after resolution, you actually still get the battle immunity, even though it's no longer on the field. Isn't that correct?
Everyone fits monster in the field. That target still faces the field. The battle will not be destroyed, but battle also 600 points.
Yes. Also, I just want
to... You're saying if the monster you targeted leaves the field, everything's indestructible still?
Yeah, but only if it leaves the field after the resolution of the effect. Obviously not if it gets removed by, like, say, Compulse or something like that.
If that target is still facing the field. So for you to actually resolve that effect, it has to be there.
I mean after resolution, not during it. Like say they go ahead and use the monster I target for Exceed summoning or something like that. And also, if anyone's wondering why I didn't just go ahead and activate the Lost Remembrance right away when he enters the standby phase, it's because I was saving it for a little bit later on, just in case something went on. I know I could have activated right away, but he could have just as easily normal summoned another Burning Abyss and Exceed summoned anyway, so I figured it was more effective for me to just wait instead of immediately activating it. Hey, pick a topic so that we have something to talk on while everything's going forward here.
I'm interested in your choices of cards. I've noticed that Vambrance is also summons itself as a level 2. So do you use that for any like rank 2 monsters in your extra deck, or
Yeah, I run a
like?
single copy of the Phantom Knight's Javelin, which is a. I'll go ahead and just quickly go over it. It's a rank 2 that has the effect. It's actually completely generic, but you get an extra bonus should you use Phantom Knights. And
That's what
now,
that's
so
what
if
you need
anyone's
for
wondering why
Ridiculous
I'm
Fishing.
asking him to declare his mills, it's because sometimes players do decide to not mill 3 off of Dante, and then like they'll sometimes like see something they like and like say, oh, maybe I should push my luck, and I just want to avoid dealing with that, which is why I asked him to declare. But yeah,
Oh, exactly.
I run the one.
Every player should be declaring how many they're milling before they do it, if it's a cost, or even on resolution. Even applies for like pendulum summons. If you're going to pendulum summon, you should declare how many you're summoning, so your opponent can be like, okay, like you're done. You don't have to ask when they're done, because if you start asking when they're done their pendulum summon, then your opponent will know. Oh, you've got like a strike or a warning,
Yeah,
and oh, you got something. Okay, I'm only going to summon 2, not all 5 of my monsters in my extra deck.
yeah. Also, you're
No.
about to see
Well,
me summon the javelin on the next turn, I believe.
not that you'd really have to worry about that with links now, but
Yeah, and also just to go back to what I was talking about with the javelin. So I only run the one copy of the javelin for 2 particular reasons. One is, yes, I can easily go into 2 of them in a game, but in my experience, I never really need a second one for a few reasons. One is that it's actually really hard to kill a Phantom Knight monster once it gets onto the field. As you guys have seen, I've had Beast Free, I've had the Phantom Knight Loss of Rammers on the field for 2 turns, and I've had Silent Boots on the field for 3 turns. Like, it can be really difficult for your opponent to actually get your monsters off of the field once you get going. So usually when I summon out the javelin, he usually stays on the field for for both of his negations, sometimes even 3 negations.
that's interesting. Do
Yeah.
you
Hmm?
for no beyond the spear? Have you ever thought of running that one XYZ? It's a herald that returns a monster in your graveyard to your hand. Like I don't know, it's kind of cheesy, but if you made it, you could go and bring back Max C to your hand,
I've
or I don't know.
I've considered it, but as of right now, my extra deck is just really tight. And also, if you are to make a really cool play, I decided to go ahead and lost wins to Beatrice during the end phase, so that he's not able to use its effect to send anything to the grave from his deck. Like, yeah, he's still able to pay the cost of it, but he's not able to actually send anything, which is much bigger than him actually being able to pay the cost, because right now he doesn't have a far in the graveyard, so he isn't able to use that seer to get any value off it. Because seer's the one that's supposed to summon from grave, right? Or is that the one that summons from deck? I
Sorry,
forget.
Seer summons from grave, Graph summons from deck.
Yeah, so because he doesn't have a far in his graveyard, the seer basically doesn't do anything. So I know I'm completely safe because Burning Abyss don't usually run a lot of interrupted back row, at least not in 2017. So I just go ahead and summon the Javelin, and here's the card if you want to go ahead and read it real quick.
You can touch one XYZ material from this card, then target one face at monster, every monster your opponent controls. Until the end turn, changes attack to 0, also has its effects negated. Its effect can be activated during either player's turn if it has a Phantom Knight's card as an XYZ material. You only use this effect once per turn. Now, the thing about that, what makes it interesting, Knights as an XYZ material, it becomes a fast effect. And that means it can be used during the damage step. So if a player attacks it,
Yeah, I
or you
actually
attack with it,
actually
you
do
can
that
use
a
it.
few times.
Mm-hmm. Which is a lot. Is something that people won't see if you're using it in a non Phantom Knights deck.
Yeah, I actually had a few people that did use it in their extra deck and didn't realize that it could become a quick effect when used in an actual archetype it was designed for. And also, this card is the sole reason why well, not the sole reason, but do you think I should go? You want to ask me any other questions? So I'm not just rambling on about javelins for like 40 minutes.
Oh no, that's you go on.
Like, yeah, because I just want you to go
Uh,
ahead and like just give me more topics to keep talking about, or just like pick a topic yourself you want to talk about. This way, we have a variety of things going on for people to listen to while they watch.
well, for your Phantom Knights deck, I'm kind of curious. I've seen your Lost Win. What kind of other generic spell and trap cards are you running? Like, um, a lot of people, some people run as back row. Some people just kind of stick to their generic. Like for me, for example, I don't often play helmet decks or anything with back row.
This isn't a
Um,
helmet deck, just so you know.
no. But I mean, it plays a lot more back row than not any other deck, but most other decks, unless they're playing, cards in my deck.
That is true.
Um, And like I don't play a lot of generic traps. When I'm playing a deck, I'll run like for example, I have a Subterror deck. You know about it. I only play one copy of the Final Battle because it does a lot of really awesome things. And my deck was supposed to be very aggressive, and being a trap card is inherently slow. But the fact that it does that, it's like, well, I want to run it in my deck. Now, and when you're playing back row decks, you have that ability to run a little more. And I'm kind of curious, like, what kind of generic trap cards do you run in this, but beyond like your Phantom Knight trap cards?
Well, at the time of this duel, the only generic trap card I was running was Imperial Order, which I never drew into. Lost Winds, which I resolved 3 or 4 times in this game, and what was the other trap card? I think that's it for trap cards, actually. The only other ones would be spell cards, where I'm running like Allure of Darkness and Raigeki Twin Twister. But for the most part, I'm just running almost a full investment of Phantom Knight's trap cards for 2 reasons. One is that they're all searchable off of the Phantom Knight's boots and the one copy of Phantom Knight's helmet, which, if you guys aren't familiar with helmet, it allows you to do the same thing as boots, but instead of adding it immediately, you add it during the end phase, so it's a little bit slower. And also, as you can
Okay.
see, this guy is going for Tour Guide over there. I forget what he actually does here. I'm going to go ahead and just speed this up a few plays real quick. Yeah, so I just go ahead and activate the Javelin. Oh yeah, this is a part where we start having a little bit of interaction here. I go ahead and activate the Javelin to target his Tour Guide. He activates Fog Blade, and I was debating on if I wanted to activate my Fog Blade on his Tour Guide, but I decided to save it because if he goes into Deco Talker, it would obviously not have anything pointing to it, so I could just go ahead and activate the Fog Blade right on the Deco Talker instead. Like, what do you think of that thought process?
That would be a very expensive decode talker. However, I don't know. There'd be also a lot of effects triggers.
I mean,
Let's see
keep
here.
in mind that Beatrice was hit by Lost Winds, so it basically isn't doing anything.
Let's see here. If this card is destroyed, but it's true. However, if they send it in that method, it would also not get its special summon effect
That
when
is
it's just into
true.
the graveyard.
And also, I
So
don't know if this guy made a misplay here or not, but he puts his Beatrice into attack mode. I'm not sure if he realized that he couldn't attack into my Cursed Javelin because of his Fog Blade, so he just attacks into my Silent Boots and calls it a turn. Because I think it calls it a turn. And also, you want to know a fun little gimmick that you can do with Javelin that doesn't come up a lot, but I do sometimes do?
sure.
The Phantom Knight Rank Up magic actually has a graveyard effect where you can go ahead and banish it to equip a Phantom Knight's monster from your hand to an Xyz monster you control.
Or not equip, but attach, right?
Yeah, attach it, my bad.
Yeah,
Which
so
actually
then use
have
its effect
done
again.
which actually have done a few times to give Javelin additional negation.
Now, I haven't read that effect particularly. Did you say Phantom Knight monster or a Phantom Knight card?
I think it's a Phantom Knight monster. I don't actually use the rank of magic until later in the game, so a little bit harder to say. And also, I'm going to speed up the game a few turns again. There we go. I just wait until he did the Pot Desire, so you know.
Oh yeah, sure.
Anyway, so he goes ahead and activates Pot Desire, which I actually think made a really big impact on this game because when you're in a game like this, where it's Burning Abyss versus Phantom Knights, the game is not decided by who has the most amount of cards. It's decided by who uses their cards smarter, which is why I personally don't think you should ever play Pod Desires if you're in this particular matchup and you know it, because yeah, you're going to get 2 cards, but you're losing 10 resources that you definitely need to stay in the game. Like, what do you think about that?
Um, I run per Pot Desires, but I actually only play one copy of it.
No,
The
I meant, like,
multiple
what do you think about playing Pod Desires when you're in a matchup like this, where it's decided by who plays smarter,
oh,
not by who has more cards?
in their deck, I like a Burning Abyss deck that is super risky. I would never do it because there's so many parts in that deck that are so crucial to surviving that if you were to banish any of them, it'd be a detriment more than a plus. You draw those 2 cards and you're more likely to lose what you need to survive. Like he had they had Sir already.
Yeah, they have Seer,
Okay.
but they didn't have Graph anywhere. I don't know if they banished it or not, I forget.
So, using it after Sears in the graveyard may be okay, but it's risky, especially you bring yourself down to that many life points, and in a mirror, especially in a mirror match,
This
or
isn't a
not a mirror match, but like like a rank 3 turbo kind of mirror match, where you're not looking at very many different monsters. Yours is better because you can make monsters stronger than 2,500 attack, whereas usually Burning Abyss monsters, if they're making a monster but bigger than that, it's going to be $3,000, and when they play it, they're probably going to lose shortly afterwards. And you can see that, I can see that you've done that after you brought out that Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon.
Yeah, and also I sped it up to after he made the Deco Talker, as this is where he started slow playing for like about 10 minutes. But yeah, like I just personally don't think you should ever play Pot Desires if it's in your hand in a super grindy matchup like this, since the matchup is honestly not going to be decided by an extra card or two. It's going to be decided how he plays their cards smarter. That's just what I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he summons out Deco Talker. I go ahead and activate the Lost Winds in Graveyard to set it, which, I mean, I basically need it there because it's my only defense mechanism for keeping Cursed Javelin safe whenever Fogblade gets removed. Oh, and also, I actually do something really cool in this matchup. I don't know when it is, but at some point, I'm going to actually show you a cool little combo that can really catch off your opponent off guard, especially if they're doing something like, say, a sleeper or something like that. You'll see it shortly. Although he does have the Twin Twister, which is kind of disappointing because Phantomics never really want to lose their back row.
Seeing that field go is pretty sad.
Yeah, but the good news for me is, though, that even though he does get rid of all my back row, I still do end on a single Lost Winds face down. My Javelin does get 500 extra attack points, so it goes up to 2,100, and it's still underneath his Fog Blade, so he cannot attack me even if he wants to. On top of that, the Lost Winds is affecting the Deku Talker, which means that thing... And correct me if I'm wrong here, because you're the one who knows rulings better than me when it comes to attack moderation. Deku Talker cannot go over 1150 now because of Lost Winds under any circumstances. Or at the very least under its own effect, right?
I'm just going to reread the Lost One real quick.
Okay.
Its original attack is halved.
Also, this is where I make a small little brain fart and forget that Lost Winds condition to banish itself and leaves the field is still in play. So do ignore that. I sometimes, when I'm playing super grindy matchups like this, I tend to forget small things like that. It's not really me cheating, it's me just, forgetting certain small little tidbits like that. Although thankfully my opponent does catch it, so it ends up getting fixed, so it's all good. And also, I think on the next turn is actually when the game just ends. No, not the next turn. I know, like, one of these turns I summon Gofu. And also, I'm just skipping through because this guy just uses Graveyard for like 2 minutes straight doing nothing. So I'm just going back to my turn if you want to speed up your replay to that point.
So, what happens with Decode? Decode goes down to
1150.
1150, and then can gain the 15. Because the original attack is stuck down at 1150.
Yeah, but its effect is negated. Oh, okay, I get it.
Its effect is negated, yeah.
Now, so if anyone's wondering why I run 3 copies of the Wrong Magnet and 3 copies of Lost Vambrance, it's actually for a few different reasons. One, Lost Vambrance gives me the ability to get an additional monster in the field who gives me a Wabaku-like effect for the entire turn. And it also gives me a main deck out to Burning Abyss and any other Exceed Spam deck, which, like, the amount of time to actually resolve that effect and it costs my opponent a turn is actually kind of scary. Like, what are your thoughts about the fact that I have a main deck out to Burning Abyss that just randomly happens? It doesn't really supposed to be there.
Well, you're not afraid of Burning Abyss. It's just something that happened that was, there.
I'm not afraid of Burning Abyss. It's just so happened that by running triple copies of Lost Vambrance, who's mainly there for the Wabaku effect and the ability to get extra monsters on the field for Borlo Dragon and to make Cursed Javelin, it just so happens that he's good against Burning Abyss because after turn 1, Burning Abyss normally have a spell or trap set, and if they have a spell or trap set, they can't special summon anything.
I personally think that card is actually really good, and I don't think it's a bad thing to run 3 of it. I personally like it. I like the other one too.
The one that I currently
The
have
magnet
set
ring.
face down, the magnet ring. It's very underneath Deco Talk if you want to read it.
Yes, yes.
And also, I just want to point
Uh,
out that there's actually a lot of little gimmicks that you can do with Wrong Magnet that are actually unique to itself. Like, for example, you can go ahead and activate it when you have, like, say your opponent has, like, say you Fog Blade I don't know, say you Fog Blade a random Burning Abyss monster for some reason. I don't know why you would, but say you did. You can go ahead when your opponent tries to attack you directly, you activate the Wrong Magnet. You can negate their attack, and then you can go ahead and activate Wrong Magnet's effect to draw 2 cards by getting rid of the Fog Blade. And also, another thing that makes that card really good is that if you have evenly matched in your hand, you can get rid
you
of.
can what you can do your field and then get rid of using it during the battle phase after you've got rid of all the things that are stopping you from using it.
Yeah, I've actually done that a few times where I have like a Fog Blade or something on the field, so my opponent thinks they're safe from evenly matched. So they expend a lot of resources thinking they're going to kill me in one turn. Because let's face it, in 2017, who's running battle traps?
If you are, it's going to be like a random quaking here or there, and it's not going to be a lot of competitive players doing that.
Yeah, so whenever I activate Wrong Magnet and get rid of like the Lost Winds, I feel like my opponent probably feels in the back of their head that they may have just walked into a evenly matched. Like, I think Pure Phantom Knight is actually the best deck in the game to abuse evenly matched because you can easily get the cards that you could set like 4 or 5 back row and have all that back row removed from the field during the battle phase if you really wanted to.
Yeah. Well, I personally I like Magnet Ring.
By the way, here's that combo I was telling you about. So,
What's that, sorry?
I'm gonna I'll let you talk in a second, but here's what I wanted to show you. So, the reason why I run double copies of the Phantom Knights of Dark Gauntlets here, who is basically just a trap variation of Foolish Burial of Goods, is because of this particular interaction right here. So, my opponent goes ahead and activates Greatsword. They're targeting Fog Blade and Cursed Javelin. So obviously they're doing that because they want to get rid of that monster so they can attack into me, right?
Yeah.
So when they go ahead and did that, I now know that the Fog Blade will be removed at the end of this chain, so I go ahead and activate the Dark Gauntlet or to send the Phantom Knight Spear from my deck. And Phantom Knight Spear has an effect that, how do I explain this? I never know how to explain these type of effects.
Spear for a second here.
The Graveyard effect, the one that lets you ban, it's like a Gospel Revival.
Oh, that spell card. Each time your opponent activates a card or effect, the target's Phantom Knight monster.
Not that one, the second effect.
If a dark monster you control will be destroyed by battle or a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead.
Yeah, like how do I explain that? How do I explain that kind of effect? I never really know how to explain it.
It's an effect that okay, so it's an unclassified effect that applies when
the conditions will be met.
Yes, which is so as soon as something to be destroyed, you have the opportunity to use it or not.
Yes. And so even though it was sent during the chain resolving, I was still allowed to banish it to protect my monsters. Basically, what I'm trying to explain there.
Well, it's an effect that doesn't activate, so it can be applied while a chain is resolving. So as long as it's there when the particular scenario stated in the card is occurring, then you can use it.
Yeah, like that's the main reason why I run Dark Gauntlets. Sorry to interrupt you there. Go on what you were saying earlier.
I think I was talking about using the Magnet Ring and using it defensively against evenly matched, because you can use it to get rid of your stuff. So you can use it evenly matched against your opponent, but also if you were to walk into an evenly matched, you can get rid of your stuff to draw, and then not have to banish as much stuff.
That is true. I haven't actually done it yet, but in theory you could do that. Although it is a little tricky to do, because generally when I have this card on the field, I'm using it to go into a Cursed Javelin, a Barrel Load Dragon, or something like that. And also, as you can see, my opponent is actually starting to struggle a little bit, as the Cursed Javelin is at 2100, which is actually bigger than all 3 of the monsters he has on the field, so he just kind of has to end his turn with that back row and hope that he gets around. So yeah, I've drawn into another Phantom Knight's Magnet, which is not the best thing to draw into, but like I run triple of it for a reason, so it's a risk I have to take. Any other questions you have about the deck?
Mm, I'm not sure. Do you have any other like tech choices for your extra deck? Like you said, it was pretty tight, and okay, I see a Borreload Dragon. Are you using it just for the fact that it can't be targeted, or
I actually
like?
use it as a way for me to have offensive pressure because it's really easy to summon in this deck, but it's not like the main win condition. Although I will say that ever since our game, I have edited a little bit. Such as, for example, I dropped a Dark Rebellion, the rank 5 Dark Rebellion for a. I've dropped one of it for an Evil Swarm Ophion. I've started looking into running a mini tech engine to go into Mrs. Radiant, not Mrs. Radiant, Miss Starboy, so that I'm able to use that rank 3 to let me attack directly.
Miss
Using it
Starboy. Now,
twice in this.
how do you do in the Miss Starboy then? That's beyond me now.
If I were to do that combo, it would require me going into the number shark monster, and one lets you attack directly. And it would
Oh,
also,
okay.
and also here, my opponent and I just get into a small little debate about Cloak. Basically, it was what the Kotaku's current attack value is. I still don't know if this thing is supposed to be 1150 or 1950, but it doesn't end up mattering all that much.
Deco Talker's at 1150.
Yeah, but
It,
I mean, I wasn't paying attention as to when Cloak was used.
oh, I'd have to check the log.
But yeah, that's basically what it is. It doesn't end up actually coming into play, but that's just like a small little debate we had. And also, just so you guys realize, just look at how long this cursed javelin stayed on the field. Like as I said, it's really hard to get these monsters off the field once they hit it.
Yeah, at that Cursed Javelin is one of those kind of monsters. If you're playing it in a Phantom Knights deck, that you'd have to actually get it with like just pure removal. You couldn't. It'd be super hard to get rid of that via battle if it had any materials.
Actually, it's
Um,
hard to get rid of it by card effects too, because Phantom Knights actually have a lot of protection inherently. Because they have a Phantom Knight Wings, which gives protection by battle card effects once. They have Phantom Knight Sword, which is the same thing, which also gives you even more attack points permanently. And it's just actually really hard for your opponent to get over your monsters. And also, I'm
I've
just
al-
skipping through the game until he takes the battle damage.
I've always enjoyed the Phantom Knights personally for a lot of their effects that apply differently and work differently for like they have obviously their two effects. They've got their onboard effect. They have a grave effect, and sometimes they summon themselves, which is fantastic. And even the narrow ones have a third effect where they can do something on the field as well. And I actually enjoy how they have different mechanics. Like a lot of decks run like a lot of similar cards that just do something slightly different and support that archetype and kind of boost it a little bit. But the Phantom Knights have a lot of really unique effects. Like the Fog Blade's kind of like a Fiendish Chain, but it adds that extra feature where you can make it so whatever's hit by it can't be attacked. And that's an interesting thing about Fog Blade is because you can use it against your own monster to protect your life points.
Yeah, I've actually
Or
done that a few times where I'll just like summon a random effect monster and like fog blade it so my opponent can attack me for a turn or so.
and like the Lost Vambrins that we were talking about earlier, Vambrus. Um,
Yeah, it has
I
the ability to really mess up excuse spam decks, which is like it's actually something that just unintentionally comes up. It's kind of funny, but it unintentionally comes up.
well, that's it. Like I find like the fact that it does something even so small that can actually affect something indirectly. Like I used to play a lot of cards back when XYZs were like really prominent. I used to play this one trap card. I can't remember the name of it, but what it did is it changed the level of monsters on the field by one or two, I think. And then it did the same thing in the graveyard. You can banish from the graveyard to do the same thing.
Oh, you're talking
So
about Mischief of the Gnomes or the
yeah, that would be
Yokai
it.
or whatever it was called. That card is actually like I actually don't think that card is usable on Dueling Network. Like it's probably usable on Dueling Book, but not on Dueling Network because people would just shuffle their hand. It becomes impossible to figure out what cards were affected. Also, I just want to point out he finally managed to get rid of the Cursed Javelin after like I think it was like 15 turns that thing was on the field. But yeah,
What kind, what if you were to play their deck? Like, what kind of removal would you be running? Like, I don't see much here. They've got their Fog Blade, they've got a Ghost Ogre and Tornado, like Twin Twisters.
well,
Um,
I'm not a big I don't really play Burning Abyss that well, but I have played against it, and generally speaking, the only outs they have to things like my deck is like far something like that. Like they don't generally run kaijus, and if they do, it's usually like 1 or 2 kaijus, so they don't really rely on that all that much.
Well, Kaiju used to be a little more popular back when the field, not the field spell, but Slumber was at 2 and 3, because they'd mill Slumber and then banish Slumber to add a Kaiju to their hand.
Yeah,
But now that Slumber's at 1, that's a little more uncommon.
yeah, but I think like the only real things that Burning Abyss would have to win this matchup would probably be like oh god, I just drew into evenly matched here. Sadly, I have the Phantom Knights thing here, but I think I actually do end up resolving evenly matched in like final game of his final turn or something. I don't remember. Oh wait, I remember how I win now. I'm not gonna spoil it, but this game ends on like the next turn or so. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly fast forward into when I make the normal summon. There we go. So any other questions? Because we're nearly done with the duel.
So I noticed earlier you used GoFu to go into Link summons, and I see your Borreload dragon now out there. I'm curious, like you focus on sort of using the trap cards, and like I know like a lot of things to see here.
I mean, how do I use GoFu to go into Borreload normally?
Yeah, like you go GoFu and you could bring out like a proxy dragon with the tokens.
Okay,
but then Borreload requires 3+ effect monsters, right?
Yeah, so generally if I have GoFu, if I have any of the Phantom Knight trap cards in the graveyard, the ones that special summon, or a normal summon in my hand, I have a Barrel-Load Dragon, which is almost impossible not to have in this deck, because after turn 1, you generally have the resources to do whatever you feel like.
Mm-hmm. Now, Borreload it's pretty good. It's 3,000 attack, it's untargetable, and it can bring things down by 500, which is nice.
And also, I just want to point out a few other things that make Borreload Dragon even better in this deck. First off is that it obviously can chain block Mirror Force and stuff like that, so they're not able to activate. But on top of that, it's actually a dark monster, and if you read the Phantom Knight Spear, that means that I can banish that thing to protect it from like a Regeki or something if I want to. Which means that Barrel Dragon has even more protection than he normally does within this deck, since I have Fog Blade, I have Spear, I have Sword, I have Wings, I have all these different ways to protect Barrel Dragons. So once this thing comes out, it's usually pretty safe unless my opponent has a Kaiju, which are starting to fall off, it seems.
That's actually pretty disgusting. I am impressed.
Yeah, it's actually come up a lot where my opponent just can't kill the Borreload no matter what they do. I've even had a few scenarios where Borreload Dragon ends up having over 5,000 attack points.
Jeez. I'm interested in that rematch at some point, because I'd like to see if I can get rid of that Borreload.
Well, how about this then? If this little series I'm trying to do gets popular, you'll be in episode 6 as my opponent. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Or maybe episode 4. Depends on if I'm able to find anybody invaded for the other episodes, because obviously when I'm doing duel commentary, I try to find against an opponent who's obviously trying to win. That way it's more interesting to watch the game.
Well, are you saying that when I'm dueling you, I'm not trying to win?
Normally when I duel people in unrated, they're either idiots or are not really well-versed with how their deck functions.
Are you saying I'm an idiot, or
no? I just mean in general. Like, I do a lot of good people in unrated, but I don't like doing them for videos just because of that particular reason. Obviously, with you, it wouldn't be an issue since you're obviously actually know what you're doing, unlike most people. And also, if you're paying attention here, I actually managed to get into a Barrel Dragon and still have enough resources to go into a Break Sword, who I then blow up with his own effect to go into a Dark Rebellion Dragon. So you're starting to see that grind game resource come into play.
Well, they've already exhausted a lot of their stuff, and now they're hurting pretty bad.
Yeah, like, I think at the end of this turn, he's going to have no monsters left on the field, and he's still going to have that back row face down, which, I'm not going to lie, I actually thought that it might be a set evenly matched, just because he hadn't played it for this entire game, and it's been on the field since, like, turn 6, I think.
Does it ever bother you when you end a game if you don't get to see what back row they had? Like,
A little bit, but I also have ADHD, so a lot of stupid stuff bothers me. So yeah,
I
I'm
don't know.
basically going to end
I
up
don't.
just...
I don't see you gonna be. I don't think you're gonna be able to use that evenly match this game.
I'm not going to use evenly matched in this game. It must have been a different Burning Abyss game, because I have like 6 of these games where it basically all comes down to the same. My opponent activates Pot of Desires, and then they mysteriously never have a seer or a graph, so I end up just winning.
Now, it sounds like you've faced a lot of Burning Abyss decks with your Phantom Knight deck here.
Yep, I'm actually completely undefeated against all Burning Abyss decks with my Phantom Knight deck. Like, this deck has a 100% win rate at the moment against Burning Abyss.
Wow. And even at the beginning, they were handling themselves pretty well. Like, it seemed that they had a board. You were down to like what 3 cards for a bit.
They were
and
actually winning. It's just that it's just that my deck is really strong at the grind game. So if I'm playing another grind deck, I usually win just because my deck is specifically designed to do the grind game.
Your deck like Phantom Knights spit out resources and recycle resources.
Yeah, and also another thing that makes this deck better at grinding than Burning Abyss is the fact that, well, unlike Burning Abyss, none of my effects are once per turn outside of the trap card, so it's actually a lot easier for me to grind through my opponent's resources than it is for Burning Abyss, because if you go ahead and, like, for example, say you want to special summon Skarm so you can get underneath the Dante, but your opponent has back row and you're fearful of, like, a Solemn, you gotta, like, really decide, do you want to go ahead and special summon that Skarm to go into Dante and risk the Solemn Strike where you lose the Skarm, you don't get the search during the end phase? Or do you not want to do it? Like, just things like that. Like, Phantom Knights are just a lot safer at the grind game.
Yeah, well, especially since, like, the Burning Abyss, as you say, they're limited to only one of their effects rather than be able to use each effect once.
No, so I just go ahead and decide to tell my opponent the math damage because the game was already taking like an hour, I think, at this point. I should only take like about a half hour. It's a little bit shorter than I thought.
I've had a couple games where it's just like, no, you need to gain this. No, you take this. No. It's like almost sometimes I feel like I'm giving players like math lessons. It's like, oh my God, I'm sorry.
The good news with me is that my brain works so fast that I know the mathematical damage they're going to take almost instantaneously.
I just think it's so funny because, like, a lot of people, they sit there and try to add it together and subtract all at once. And, like, why don't you just subtract them each one at a time and then you don't have to worry about anything. It's wasting time. But, I don't know.
Yeah, so at this point, I just go ahead and add the Fog Blade just to give myself another layer of protection because at this point, I have two 3,500 beaters, one of which is immune to targeting. I have a negation, I have a Pot of Greed, and I have an evenly matched if he somehow does get over my field. So at this point, I don't feel like the Burning Abyss player has any chance of winning the game at all.
No, you have it pretty set down. I don't know what they're doing. They've a few cards, but it doesn't seem like they're getting anywhere with what they have.
Yeah, plus they have back row face down still, so they can't even activate their Burning Abyss to special summon themselves, so they're like they have no way to get out of this, in my opinion. And then from here, I'm going to normal summon Crane. He's just going to go ahead and scoop.
And there's the end of the game there.
Yeah, so you'll see he just goes ahead and admits defeat and leaves the game right away. Okay, everyone, so this has been my duel commentary with Fabled over here. Say hello.
Hey, it was a pleasure.
So, I'm going to try to get a person to come with me on each of these different duel commentaries. Might be Fabled, I might kidnap Toots, I might kidnap Daniel, I don't know who. Like, If you guys want to actually come in and do one of these with me, let me know in the comment section below. Just use hashtag Fabled or some nonsense like that. I'll like poke you and invite you to do one of these with me. So it's gonna be like a different deck every single time. I'm not gonna do the same deck like 2 times in a row. Might do the same deck like after a certain amount of time, but it won't be like back to back, you know. Any social media you wanna promote or something here?
No, I try to keep that all down low right now. So.
Well, in that case, this has been Alexis, and say your name.
You want me to say my name? Oh, fine. And Fable, if you want me to be that way.
And I'm gonna go ahead and sign out now. Peace.
Take care, guys.